introduce you to your host, Barry, one of the Barrys, Barry J. Heyman, Esquire. Barry Heyman has been practicing entertainment, intellectual property, copyrights and trademarks, and new media law for over 15 years. In 2004, Barry founded Heyman Law, where he is the principal attorney. In his law practice, Barry advises individuals and businesses on a wide variety of legal matters, including drafting and negotiating contracts, forming corporate entities, and handling copyright, trademark, and other intellectual property matters. In addition, he provides strategic and commercial advice on various aspects of the music and media industries, including current technological changes and alternative copyright distribution and exploitation models. All right, I'll turn it over to you, Barry.
All right, thanks, Rivka, and thanks, Dan Schneider. Well, it's wonderful to see everyone, many of which I see on this session that I know personally, and the others, it's nice to meet you. It's an honor to interview Barry Bergman. I actually have known Barry for quite some time, since the mid-90s. In fact, the backdrop of my that you see here is the last time I was at his home, and so we both have the same background. I took a photo of it and thought it would be great to have. So those are lots of vinyl records and CDs that you see behind us at Barry's home. So I thought what we'd start with, I'll do a background on Barry Bergman, a little bio, and then we can get into the session. So just a bit about Barry. So Barry's played a key role in launching the careers of AC/DC, Meat Loaf, John Paul Young, and Flash in the Pan, when vice president and professional manager at Edward B. Marks Music. Barry is the former vice president of creative affairs for United Artists Music. Barry formed Barry Bergman Management, representing recording artists, and Ellie Max Music and Wood Monkey Music, representing songwriters. He's published over 400 songs recorded by artists including Cher, Michael Bolton, Joan Jett, Kiss, and Helix. And he also is the founder and chairman emeritus of the Music Managers Forum, US, an international not-for-profit organization with over 1,000 members worldwide. The MMF was formed to further the interests of talent managers and their artists in the fields of the music industry. And also, Barry currently holds music industry seminars focusing on management, marketing, promotion, music publishing. And you can visit, for more info, you can go to barrybergman.com. And lastly, he was inducted into the Personal Managers Hall of Fame on May 10th, 2018. So we are going to, get a little bit more into this, but that's a little bit of the background about Barry. So I just wanted to welcome you, Barry, to this interview.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, cool. So maybe we start a little bit more about your background, and maybe tell us a little bit about like your career and how it's evolved, how it started in the industry, how you started in the industry.
My career started when I was 10 years old, and my father took me to the first Alan Freed rock and roll show at the Brooklyn Paramount, and I looked up at the stage and I was mesmerized. And that was the day that I realized this is what I'm going to do with my life. I'm going to be in this business. And I tried, I used to run after school after I graduated from high school. I would run uptown to the Brill Building and to 1619 Broadway, which was the Brill Building, 1616 Broadway, and all the Indian labels. And
Barry, I think you are on mute. You might want to unmute yourself there.
Rivka, we got to unmute Barry.
There we go. Okay, if you want to just backtrack the last sentence, I think.
Okay. No, so I used to run after school uptown to get a job in the business, and tried, knocked on every door, couldn't get in. And I
Okay.
decided at the time, if I have to be miserable and not be in the business, I should make some money. So I decided I was going to go down to Wall Street and become a stockbroker.
Okay.
And I figured I'd go down there for a year and then I'd get out of there.
Hmm.
And I knocked on doors to get into Wall Street, and I ended up getting into a firm, and I ended up getting my license, and I was a registered rep. And the year turned into 7 years because
Okay.
I still couldn't get into the business. But while this was all going on, I teamed up with a friend of mine at the time who was a successful songwriter by the name of Ted Darrell, and we started a little production company,
Okay.
and we put out a bunch of records. And I really learned the business by getting into my car and going from New York all the way up to Richmond, Virginia, going to Baltimore, Washington, and
Okay.
all the way up to Richmond, and then going the other way up to Buffalo, New York.
So you started in not as a music manager, but more on the record production side, and then
Yes,
eventually
as a label,
segued.
basically. We had a label, a production company, and we made deals.
Okay.
And I would sell the masters, and Teddy would do production, and I would sell the masters, and then do all the promotion and marketing.
So then, how did you get involved in music management?
Well, I was born a manager.
Okay.
It's not something you get involved with. It was something that I was born because I always, enjoyed helping others and guiding others. So it was
Hmm.
something that I was born into. But I find that through my experience, you end up getting in. I got into the business in 1975 full time, although I was in it from 1962, part time.
Hmm.
But I got in full time in 1975, and I ended up coming up through the music publishing industry.
Okay.
And my first job was at Edward B. Marks Music.
So you started in record production, record label, then you went on the songwriting side and music publishing, and then from there
Well,
segued into
what's
music
happening
management.
is I was like a surrogate manager to AC/DC and to
Okay.
the Meat Loaf people, even though they had managers. I was basically, running most of it.
So you're
And,
representing them as songwriters.
yes, but I was like the surrogate manager at the
I
time.
see.
And my dream was to always be in the management and music publishing business. And
Mhm.
in 1981, when I got fired from United Artists because the company tried to hurt some of the writers that I brought in, and I went against the president of the company. I took him on,
Mm.
and he ended up firing me, which left me devastated at the time. But I
Yeah.
have a favorite saying, which was 39 years ago, my greatest fear in life was not having a job and not having a paycheck. And 39 years later today, my greatest fear in life is having to get a job
Mhm.
because I ended up going out on my own and
Yep.
never looked back.
Right. Well, I could personally relate to that as a lawyer and working for companies and having my own law practice now. So I hear where you're coming from. So in terms of, so you worked in publishing through the 70s, 80s, 90s. Are you still in music publishing?
Well, I own a catalog,
Okay. So you're
so I
still in music publishing.
guess I'm still in publishing. I'll always be a publisher.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I've,
I don't actively pursue the publishing business right now or
mhm.
the management business. I'm basically giving my seminars and doing consulting in the industry.
Now, okay. So let's talk about the music management, MMF. Now you founded MMF US.
Yes,
What does what does MMF stand for? What does it do? What did you do? And how did you get involved with that?
well, I'll tell you how it all happened. A friend of mine who worked at ASCAP, Lisa Schmidt at the time, and in 1993, called me one day and told me that a bunch of people were coming from the UK. They had started this thing in the UK a couple months before they came here. So it
Okay.
actually originated there. And they were coming to New York, and they were going to hold a meeting. And she dragged me to the meeting, which I was glad that she did. And they were talking about how the industry was becoming more and more corporate, and how we had to try to do something about that and try to level the playing field wherever possible. And I totally agreed with that. And there was about 300 or 400 people sitting in the audience at a hotel uptown. And everybody was saying, well, can you show us what to do? Can you guide us? Can you this? Can you that? And I raised my hand because this really resonated to me.
Right.
And I said to everybody, I'll tell you how this works. Everybody who's interested in doing something here, you give me a business card, and I will call you in 2 to 3 weeks. And that's how it begins.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
one might ask why 2 to 3 weeks? And I'll tell you why I said I'd call everybody in 2 to 3 weeks. Because when you're at a revival meeting, everybody's excited. I got 35 business cards, and 3 weeks later, when I called everybody, there was 2 real people in the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone
I see.
else lost their enthusiasm. So I was
Right.
looking for the real people, and it started with me, and Lisa was there, and 2, 3 others, and that was it. And then
So you have 2 or 3 people. How many people are a part? Do you know how many people are members now of MMF?
Oh, well, we had at one point several hundred. Now
Okay.
I think we're over, we're over 100 members now. The
Okay.
thing, a lot of the people that we knew, people say to me, Barry, you must know the whole world. And I said, yes, I used to know the whole world. Most of the people I know got fired, or they retired, or they're expired. They're
I
gone.
see. Gotcha.
So, a lot of things changed, and a lot of people went out of the business. The business shifted, and the
Mm-hmm.
business,
So yeah,
became a
let's
lot
start. Well,
different than it used to be.
okay. Well, we'll get into that in a little bit. I remember you telling me about your time at MMF and that you testified in Congress, and I was wondering if you wanted to share a little bit about
Yes,
that.
yes.
Um,
Well, I
I always
believe,
found that story interesting.
well, I believe that to make the organization successful at the time, we had to do something that would put some dollars into people's pockets.
Hmm.
That's what people understand and relate to. And
Yeah.
I saw that they had, it was coming up. There was going to be hearings coming a few months down the road on digital performance rights, and I became very excited and interested in that topic. And
Okay.
I really, got involved and studied up on it and everything else. And I called the board meeting of the organization. We had 11 people on the board.
Hmm.
And I told them that we needed to get involved in this hearing. And everybody said to me at the meeting, "Who do we know? Who do we know in Washington?" I said, "Nobody." I said, "But we'll meet them somehow. We'll meet them." I said, "I'll tell you what. I will get us involved. You guys do all the backup work." And the windup is, it took me 41 phone calls to get somebody on the phone that made some sense, that I could get to hear my story.
Just
And
41 calls.
yes, because I would call in the morning, I would call in the afternoon, I'd call in the late in the day, different times to see who I could
Right.
get on the phone.
Right.
And one day, by accident, an attorney picked up for the Judiciary Committee, and I knew I had 30 seconds to get his interest, which I did.
Yeah.
And I told him that I sincerely felt that they wanted to run, an honest hearing and a legitimate hearing. But how can you tell me that you're doing that when you have nobody from the management community represented at the hearing?
Right.
All it was the big corporations
Mm-hmm.
and the unions. And he said, well, you have a point. I said, you're going to be making laws based on misinformation. And I said, it's ridiculous, because what you're going to be doing is going to be affecting my life personally, along with all of my members.
Right. So this could be a new revenue stream for artists. Artists pay a manager a percentage of their revenue, and you want to make
Yeah.
sure that your
Well,
voice
I
is heard.
wanted to make sure we got the right. You know, we
Yeah,
got to
of
get it right.
course. Yeah.
And this was
Okay.
in 1995, long before there was an iTunes.
Right. So just for perspective, I mean, you mentioned just now you had everyone there, the corporations and this and that. So the way I see it is that you have the recording industry and the RIAA that represents the interests of the recording industry, right? Record labels, and then you have the songwriters and the publishers specifically, the NMPA, and then
No,
you
they weren't.
have,
Yeah, they weren't involved.
but not then, but just in terms of a current landscape, the MMF sits in the representing the personal managers of artists' interests.
Well, I'll explain what happens. What
Hmm.
happened?
Okay.
Uh, well, I got a call back a couple of weeks later from this attorney at the Judiciary Committee, and they put us on the calendar, the MMF, and we were
Hmm.
going to be at the hearing. And here I am now. I'm going to testify in a hearing. Now I didn't even know what I was getting myself involved in here.
Hmm.
But you know, I said to myself, what little I know, they know less, so that'll be fine. But I gotta say, the minute we went up on the calendar, the phones rang off the hook. Everyone and their aunt and their uncle called because they were surprised we got on the calendar.
Hmm.
You know, they're all wondering how. And the RIAA, which likes to control everything, my arch rivals over the years, they called and they told me that they would like to meet with me, and they sent 4 people down here for us to go out to lunch. And they're gonna, and we go to this Italian restaurant uptown, and they're offering to help me write my speech. And I said, no, I don't need any help. I'm capable of writing my speech. So they said, what are you going to talk about? Now was exciting. I said, well, we're going to talk about the fact that if this right is going to happen and becomes law, that we need to get direct payment, and that you guys can't hold it hostage and you know, and recoup against a video, a tour, or anything else. They said, what? This is what you're
Right.
going to talk about? How can you say that? I said, it's very simple. Come the day of the hearing and you'll hear how I say it. And that was you know, a jam hearing. I said, you know, I'll be very frank with you. I am going to say it, and you will hear me say it, because we're going to fight for direct payment, because otherwise the right means nothing. We want it
Right.
to work like ASCAP and BMI.
I think that's very smart. And that's how it's set up. That's how it's set up.
Yes, well, what happened is Sound Exchange came into being
Right.
2000, and what ended up happening is Sound Exchange was financed by the RIAA, by the labels,
Hmm.
so they were beholden to the labels. And at the time, the MMF, we thought the best way to deal with this was to go ahead and, you know, raise funding and put up another organization against Sound Exchange, build another one.
I see.
But what happened is in 2001, we had the tech bubble. Everything exploded on Wall Street. And all the people we were talking to about money, that went down the drain. That wasn't going to happen.
I see.
So the next best thing that we thought about, which I came up with this idea, was to make it so they can't put a board together. Let's lobby everybody not to join Sound Exchange.
Hmm.
So we were successful at that.
That's
We
right.
got a lot of people that refused to join. So
Right.
they decided to change the structure of Sound Exchange, and it resembles, you know, the board of Sound Exchange became half artists and half copyright owners,
Mhm.
and they did amendments to their bylaws and everything.
Okay.
And I'm a signatory on that agreement.
All right. So I want to thank you for that. That's insightful. Is there, I wanted to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about your personal management of musical artists. But before we do, is there anything else about the MMF you wanted to mention that you think might be insightful here, or we could just
Well,
jump
I think, you
into,
know, it's probably the best thing I ever did in my career.
yeah.
I think the MMF, even though it was charitable, nobody gets paid, it was an all volunteer organization. It opened a million doors, and it was just, it's been a phenomenal experience. I
Yeah.
stepped down a year ago. I'm just doing the transition now, basically. But
Right.
I turned it over to a slate of people that I thought would be great that were
Right.
voted in, and I'm really excited about their future.
Right. Congratulations to you on that
Thank
long run and
you.
establishing it.
27 years. No, most of my friends in the business gave me 90 days to fall on my face.
Yeah,
And,
that's
and I told
that's
them at the time, if it kills me, it'll go 91 days. You'll be wrong.
that's a long run. Um, so so I must have known you and met you during that when you were at MMF, but I know you to manage musicians, songwriters over the years. Would you like to talk a little bit about your experience with that?
Yes,
What
we
kind
can.
of artists you worked with, and are you still managing artists at, now? And then we'll get into some of the changes over the course of the time
Well,
that you were talking about earlier.
basically, I always felt that the way to go was everything begins and ends with the song.
Yeah.
So, for me, everybody that I ever worked with and managed had to be a songwriter to start with.
Okay.
And a lot of them we put out independent albums. Some of them had major labels, but I did better with my independent deals and things that we were able to accomplish than
Mhm.
if they had been with labels. And
Right.
the interesting thing is, most of well, I'd say 95% of my clientele over the 40 years, none of them left unless I threw them out.
Okay.
Uh, they lasted a minimum of 10 years. I had people for 10, 15, 20, 30 years.
Well, I mean, that's pretty impressive because I mean, I've had clients and colleagues, and I work on management deals as a lawyer, and to have something that lasts more than a few years is, an accomplishment. It's sometimes I hear it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you're going to get fired as a manager. There's always, a lot of artists maybe tend to blame managers if they don't go a certain direction. If their career doesn't, become a star overnight. Why do you think how do you think you've been able to hold on or work with artists for 10, 15 plus years?
I'll give you the answer, the secret, which I
All
talk
right.
about also at my seminar.
Okay.
Uh, the secret's very simple. I spend time getting to know people before I ever went into business with them.
Mm,
Most people in this industry meet somebody, and if there's something there right away next week, they're doing business with them. I
right.
never worked like that. Everyone I ever worked with, I spent time with getting to know. And some of them I spent a year, 2 years, whether it was Bob Halligan or Rob Friedman or Mark Ribler, or I can keep going down a list of people. And I can mention people that everyone on this call never heard of, but all these
Mhm.
people earn great livings.
Yeah. I
So,
think that's an important point to make. I mean, everyone thinks a manager, an agent, a lawyer has to represent the biggest artist in the world, and that's it. If you never heard of them, then you don't have a career. Your clients don't have careers. But many clients of yours, of mine, of others, and artists and songwriters have very lucrative and successful careers that are maybe not household names. There's a
my
lot of people
clients,
be
my clients had very successful careers. And I'll
yeah.
tell you the key to it all, the key to it is not thinking about becoming a star. I think if
Mhm.
that happens, it's great. The
Yeah.
key is to be able to do what you love and earn a sustainable living.
Mhm.
And all of these people that I worked with earned sustainable livings
Yeah.
and good ones.
Right. It's that's a good mental approach, I think, and a healthy one for artists and your talent to understand.
But
And
I'll tell you,
if they're on
some
board with
other
that,
things,
that's a great perspective.
there's some other things, Barry, that I think are very important in the relationship between a manager and an artist. Number
Yeah.
one, A manager has to learn how to deliver bad news. I never
Okay.
had any problem delivering bad news.
Hmm.
The truth is the truth is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, I always looked for, when I speak to these people, to the client, do they hear me? When they speak to me, do I hear them? It's very
Right.
important. Sometimes you can speak to somebody, they don't hear anything you ever said. And
Right.
I always looked for the chemistry. If the chemistry wasn't there, I don't care if I can make $1 million with you, I'm not going into business with you.
Yeah.
And I walked away from some very successful people that I could have managed because they weren't right for me.
Yeah. I explain it to my clients, like having a personal manager or being a personal manager to artists. It's like a relationship, like a marriage. And
Totally.
sometimes you want to date them first. You want to like not, and like you said, you want to get to know them. You just don't want to, might have a crush on them, but you really have to, at the end of the day, communicate, be on the same page, have somewhat similar goals and aspirations. And yeah, I've done the same thing on, with clients of mine, so I can also relate to that.
And
You
I
know,
slept very good at night. I
hmm
never worried about losing an act because
yeah,
philosophically, I've always believed if you lose something, it's no longer necessary. Anything that goes out of your life is no longer necessary.
yeah,
And it also means a lot of times you're making room for something better to come in.
yeah. That's true too. It's a good,
But I never worried about losing a client.
it's a good philosophy. That's why I always enjoy getting together with you over the last 20 years. um, it's always insightful. So, I mean, in terms of, you know, just for clarification for those on the call, maybe getting into the industry, maybe, a lot of people here, you know, oh, I have a music manager, or they're my agent, or they're my business manager. And, there's differences between what a business manager does, what an agent does, what a, and sort of, those types of roles. Just wondering if you can explain like the role of the music manager as you see it, and how you mentioned earlier it's changed. What are some of those changes that you've seen over the years
Well,
as well?
I think the role of the music manager has gotten more and more important.
Okay.
It used to be, you get a manager, and the first thing the manager wants to do is get you a publishing deal and get you a record deal.
Hmm.
And my attitude, I never thought that way. That was never the first thing I wanted to do with anybody.
Yeah.
Because that's all about commissions. It's not about the best interest of the act.
Hmm.
Because people think if you got a multinational deal with a major label, you're on the way to stardom. All it is a license to spend the next couple of years to find out if anything is going to happen. But the role of the manager has become more and more important because even what I did with clients along the way up until the last few years was we put out a lot of our own records.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
it tied a lot of things into, sync licenses and commercials and things that I got.
Yeah.
I had I had a national commercial in 2005 that ran 3.5 years, and it was the Trojans condom commercial. It was the first of its kind ever on national television,
Hmm.
and that was with Mark Ribler.
Yeah.
And off of a 30-second spot that was on the air, we got over 3,000 emails looking for the song. And I never believed in putting things up online for free.
Hmm.
I'm a capitalist.
Hmm.
I wasn't looking to put it up online for free. So I
Okay.
kept the song totally off, and I had 3,000 people looking for it. And, people were writing daily about it
Right.
when they'd hear the song on TV or on the radio.
Yeah.
And I knew I had the basis of selling some records.
Hmm.
So I told my client at the time, I said, finish up the song because it was only a 30-second spot. I said, write the whole song. Let's put an album out. And let's, get it out there. The
Yeah.
wind-up was we ended up selling 17,000 albums.
Oh, nice.
And that
Instead
was
of potentially
direct to
giving them away.
consumer.
Uh huh.
So, there's a bigger future in that than there ever was in having a major label deal for him.
Right. The profit
Rather than
margin's a lot
making a
higher.
dollar an album, we were making $7, $8 an album.
Right. Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I think that's a big consideration for artists and managers. Do you want a small percentage of potentially a lot of download stream sales, or do you want, pretty much the bulk of the income, 17,000 copies direct to consumer without having, necessarily cutting a lot of people into that can be a very high profit margin.
oh yeah.
Yeah. Do people over the years ever ask you um, to book their shows, their live performances? And what's your thoughts on? I know there was something in California, and the differences
Well,
over the years, because a lot
well,
of people
I'm,
think
I'm,
I need a manager, I need someone to book shows. I mean, maybe not right now, what's going on out there, but there's like a misconception, maybe.
I'm not an agent, so
Exactly, and they
I
think,
don't book shows, and I'm not licensed to book shows.
okay,
So I never book shows.
do you
You know,
have to explain that sometimes to prospective clients, or you never had to deal with that?
no, I never really dealt with much of that.
Okay, so they
Uh,
kind of they know what to
but I
expect when
will
they're
say
working
the
with a
following:
manager.
I used to get a million phone calls every week, and people would say, "I got a great album, and I'm looking for a manager to take me to the next level."
Yeah,
And the reality of it all is, I would say to them, how many albums have you sold?
yeah,
You know, what are your streaming numbers? If it, depending on what year it was,
yeah.
can you sell out, 10 clubs in a tri-state area? And the answer to all of those questions was no. And I
Mhm.
had to tell all of these people, you have nothing to manage. There's nothing here.
Right,
And I love when I got a great album. I said to them, well, nobody ever called me and said they had a lousy album.
right.
you know. But the reality of it all is we are in a we the business has shifted. We are in a DIY world, a
Yeah,
do-it-yourself world,
right.
and artists have to be as aggressive and as managers are. If
Hmm.
I dealt with, fortunately, proactive people. I wasn't looking to deal with people that were going to be half asleep waiting for me to turn them into something. They had to work with me to turn themselves into something.
Right. In that case, I think you've mentioned in the past, you believe it's like a partnership to some degree.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. A lot of, us artists get signed to record labels and they think, okay, I could sit back and the label's going to make me a star. You're kind of sometimes artists feel the same way with managers. Okay, here's my record. Just make me a star.
It's
They got to
not going
pull
to
their own
happen.
weight. Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Well, you mentioned the whole DIY, do it yourself, DTC, direct to consumer with sales, artists putting out their own records. As a manager, if an artist is putting out their own record and the CEO, let's say, of its own record label, then they have social media accounts these days. They have Instagram and Facebook. The label that they have is, I mean, where do you draw the line as to what your job is and what a social media manager's job is? Or, some of these, sometimes they think you're the publicist, the tour manager, the social media manager, the record label executive. It's like,
Well, a
it seems a
manager
little
wears
bit,
a lot of hats. A manager
yeah.
wears a lot of hats. And nowadays also you need some sort of a budget. You
Hmm.
can't operate totally broke.
Meaning that do you mean then that you would potentially work or expect an artist to come to like pay like a management fee in addition to like
No,
a
no, no. I mean,
oh,
if you're going to hire a publicist, or you're going to hire
oh, right, right,
this,
right,
hire
right.
that.
I see. Yeah. No, because some managers I know, they say, hey, I'll manage you, but you're making, I don't want 15-20% of nothing. So, pay me a minimum of X amount per hour. I know some managers are like, that's unconventional, not customary, not what I
Well,
will.
I would run the other way.
Yeah,
Is the
I
art.
do. Yeah, no, it's just different perspectives. I know I've heard that. But have you ever kind of considered, well, that's not really my role, and how do you know where to cut that off, especially as things evolve, like managing social media accounts? Has that been, or so, you know what I mean? Like, Is there something where you're like, it's not really my role, but you just do it anyway because,
Well, you do
or
some of it,
you
but
do,
I don't believe it's the manager's job to do every function.
right,
You have to put some sort of a team together.
right. So at some point you have to kind of create some uh, some lines as to whose role is what, and hey, that's really a role of a
Absolutely.
publicist. That's really a role of a social media manager. Okay.
Absolutely. Well, I have a whole different take on social media nowadays because everybody has numbers. This one has 5,000, 10,000, 50,000,
Right.
100,000. And, people follow as friends or whatever you're calling them, depending on the platform.
Mhm.
And my question to everybody is no matter how big your numbers are, how many of these people do you really know? How many of
Mhm.
these people have you really been in touch with? How
Right.
many of these people are willing to spend $2 on you?
Right.
And the
Okay.
answer in most cases is little to none.
Right.
And one of the things that I teach in my seminar, in fact, I'm doing one of those next Tuesday on the 15th,
Okay.
is how to turn these followers and friends into fans and get
Yeah.
them to spend money.
All right.
Because I think the future of this industry right now is going with artists is going to be subscriptions
Yeah.
and it's going to be unique experiences.
Yeah.
Not just going to be making music. It's going to be
Mhm.
unique experiences. And I'm going to
Right.
teach all about that next week.
Okay, I'm starting to see that with some of my clients as well, creating unique experiences. I want to touch upon your seminar in just a bit. We have I think about 5 minutes left.
Right.
There's a couple, I know over the last decade or so, you've gotten out, in addition to music, you've segued in working with other, like in film industry. You want to just touch upon that for a second? I'm just
Well,
curious,
I've
or acting and actors and things like that.
well, I don't know how this ever happened, but I've been in a couple of
Did I
films.
lose you?
I got
Uh-oh, looks like
no, I'm here.
your frame freezed.
No, you're frozen, Barry.
Oh,
I'm
there
here.
you are.
Yeah, I'm
Did
here.
you hear? Did you hear what I said?
Yes, yes, I heard you. Uh,
Okay.
no, I was hired to be in a couple of films, which I was in, and I've also been hired to do music supervision and supervised a couple of films. And in fact, there's one that's out there now called Mike. It's a documentary called Michael DeBar.
Ah.
What do you want me to be? And I did the music supervision for that whole film.
So, I mean, just briefly for folks that might not know exactly what's involved, what's the bottom line on what music supervisors do?
Well, it was my job to make all the deals for the music, get all the clearances,
Okay.
and make sure.
Did you work on the creative side of that too?
Yes, I
Select.
I helped with that, and
Okay.
especially on another film that I worked on.
Was
Film
that the
called
one you did like 5 years ago? Mimi
yeah,
or something like
Queen Mimi. Yeah.
Queen? Yeah, I saw that
Yeah.
film.
Oh,
Yeah, did a good job with that.
that was a good, great film.
Yep.
But I depends on what people want and what they allow me to do.
Right. Okay. So a little diversified there. So in 2018, as I mentioned earlier, you were inducted into the Personal Managers Hall of Fame. And that sounds like a highlight of your career. Would you say that would be, I mean, how did that happen? I mean, I
Well,
guess,
I got to
I mean,
tell you something. That was not the highlight of my career.
okay.
The highlight of my career will probably surprise a lot of people on this call. But the highlight of my career was about 15, 17 years ago, about 17 years ago, when I got a call on a Friday afternoon from a young fella, 23 years old, in California, Northern California. And he was talking to me. He asked if this was the MMF, and I said yes. And he's talking to me about his band. And 10 or 15 minutes into the conversation, I felt something wasn't right. So I put him on hold. I told him to sit tight, 1 minute. I put him on hold and I called ahead on another line and canceled my Friday evening. because he had called around 5:30 our time, quarter to 6.
Hmm.
I canceled my Friday evening because I felt something wasn't right. And I got back on the phone with him, and I was talking to him, and I opened him up, and I got him to talk, and I found out he was getting ready to commit suicide.
Mm.
His band was falling apart. He had a blowout with his mother and father. He broke up that week with his girlfriend. And I guess when you're 23 years old and all of this is happening, it's a tragic week. Well, at any rate, I spent 3.5 hours on the phone with him to bring him down.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I was able to. And
Wow.
and this kid was serious. This was not a joke or a game.
Yeah.
And and 5, 6 years ago when I had and he would check in, a couple times a year from wherever he was after this incident. And 6 years ago when I had a big birthday, he was on the phone with me and he said to me, "I need a favor." And I said, "What is that?" Because I was having a big party at the time. And he said, "I need an invitation to your party." And he flew in. And he got up and he gave this sermon on the Mount about everything that had happened.
Hmm.
And that was the highlight of my career, saving this kid's life.
Wow.
And for that, I'll forever be grateful.
Well, you talked
It far
earlier about,
surpasses, it far surpasses anything else I've ever done.
yeah, you talked about being a natural manager. Well, you seem to have managed that situation quite well.
I did
Um,
my damn
I
job.
ne- yeah, I never heard that story.
Well,
It's
I
pretty
never
poignant.
discussed it much with everybody. I didn't talk
Yeah.
much.
Well, thank you for that. Every time we speak, it's always insightful. I always laugh and I always learn something. And thank you for sharing your experiences, with us today. A little insight as to your career, what you've done. I thought we'd highlight a little bit about your upcoming seminar. If you wanted to talk
Yeah.
about that, maybe like the practical, like how they work, what the topics are, where they take
Okay.
place, what's going on with that.
Well,
Yeah.
what's happening is 2.5 years ago, I decided to wind down my management and music publishing business. And I figured the next step was to teach and to consult. So I put together what I thought was a great seminar based on my life experiences. And I focus on management, music publishing, marketing, and promotion.
Okay.
And I started this thing and I was doing it live in person. And I would
Yeah.
do it for no more than 10 to 12 people. And everything I thought about this seminar, I was wrong. I thought it would be for 20-year-olds. It ended up being 20 to 65. I
Mm-hmm.
thought it would be all local, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. People came from all over the world. I had people here from France, from Austria, from the UK, from Canada, from all over the States. It was pretty
Yeah.
amazing. And then we got, caught in the pandemic, so
Yeah.
I moved it to Zoom. And I'm doing one next Tuesday night.
Okay.
It lasts about 3 to 4 hours. And I really get into all of these topics about monetizing music, about becoming a subscription service, about the best kinds of deals to make, about
Okay.
negotiating of things that I've done, and
Nice. So
collecting.
how can people find that? Do they go to your
All
website?
you got to do is go to my website, barrybergman.com, and that's where you register.
Okay. So that's September 15th.
Yes, September 15th.
Okay.
And it's going to be a
Um,
real good one this time. A real good one.
all right. I don't doubt it.
No, well, I
Um,
change it up from time to time, and I've added some
okay.
things, took out a few things.
Okay. That sounds good. So I think, it's, unless you have any last thoughts or words that you want to share with me or anyone here, I thought we'd wrap it up and then maybe segue into Q&A.
Yeah, we
Um,
can do Q&A, and if we run over 8 o'clock, it's fine by me. I'm not in a rush.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to keep on schedule in case people have other things to go. So I think Rivka, if you're there, is going to chime back in, and maybe if anyone's queued up any questions,
Yes.
I didn't mention it throughout, but you did it in the beginning. Hopefully, people
Yeah,
did.
and you guys feel free to throw in questions now as well. We have one
Yeah.
from Roy Fenichel. What do the Berries think about future of music creation in light of recent lawsuits about copyright infringement?
I'll take that.
Can we have more of an explanation on that?
Roy, you can feel free to either you can jump in on video or give a little bit more to that question in the chat if you like.
What is it that's inspiring that question? Hello? I guess Roy is not with us.
Well, maybe we can move on if there's another one, and we can come back to it if he joins us, or I can kind of discuss what he might be going at for, but I don't, I could talk a little bit.
I have thoughts on it.
Do you want to, all right, so then go ahead. Let's just talk about it.
Well, my thoughts are very simple. Nobody's coming after anybody unless you have a success. Nobody's going to sue somebody on a song that made $15. So my attitude is very simple, and it's amazing to me how some of the biggest acts aren't even aware of this. But when I was in the 80s, 90s, when I had hits going and this, that, and the next thing, I had a little thing called copyright insurance.
Mm.
And those are things that Michael Bolton didn't have, and Pharrell didn't have, and others didn't have.
Right.
It's something that exists.
That's something that's important as a manager to explain to their clients that are creating music. I think that's
absolutely
touched upon just another piece of advice to consider.
And I'm proud to say in the 39 years I've been out on my own, I've never had one lawsuit, one problem.
Right. Okay.
Awesome. We have another question. We have from Matthew Liu. What's the worst bad news you've had to deliver to a client? How did you clean it up?
Well, I'd say one of the times that I had to deliver bad news to a client when I was dropping the client. And I had, it's an interesting story because I got him into a Broadway show. He was writing music and everything else. I made more money with this guy in 6 months' time than I made with everything else. But whatever I did, it was never good enough. So I woke up one day, looked in the mirror, and I said, what's going on here? What's the problem? And I realized that this was one of the instances way back when I sold my soul out to make money. And it wasn't going to work for me. So I went ahead and I called him up one day. I decided I was getting rid of him. I called him up and I made an appointment to meet him at 7 o'clock at his apartment on the west side. And I get a call at 12 noon. I had gotten him into a Broadway show. He was in rehearsals. And I get a call, he fell off the stage. So now I'm dealing with, ambulances and a hospital and everything else. Well, about 4 o'clock or 4:30 or so, they released him. He had a broken leg, whatever. And we got him an ambulette to get him home and everything else. And da-da-da-da-da. So I said to myself, what do I do now? So I said, do I just deal with this or let it go at the moment? And I said to myself, he's given me 6 lousy months. He's having a bad day. He'll have a worse one. So I went to his, apartment, and he had his leg up in traction and everything else. And I said to him very simply, he was complaining about now the commissions that I was making. He wanted me to lower my commissions because we were doing very well together. So I said to him, I said, you know, I thought about the whole commission thing, and I want you to be very happy.
I have a feeling I know where this is going.
I said, I want you to be very happy. So I said, here's what I think is fair. You get 100%, I get 0.
See, it does it every time we speak. You, this is, I like that.
This is a true story. And, you know, and he got the message, and he was crying there. I said to him, you know, right now I just dislike you. I don't want to hate you. So I
Right.
said, you know, I think it's best we part ways. I'm going to release you from our agreement. I'll call the attorneys in the morning, and we're going to move on. And he never surfaced after that.
That was a good question. I liked whoever asked that. That was that was fun.
But that was some of the bad news that I had to deliver. I also had to deliver when deals fell apart,
Yeah.
you know, and I had deals that fell apart over the years.
Yeah.
You know, you don't like delivering it, but the clients were fine.
So is there, we have a couple more questions?
Yeah, that was a great question. Thank you, Matthew. And we have one from Michael Cantor. What should be the main focus for a young artist getting started in producing and writing music?
Well, I think the focus should be on the writing of the music. You know, you need great songs. You know, and when I say great songs, I'm not talking about songs that I'm gonna like. I'm talking about songs that are gonna resonate to the world at large. And I find that it's, you know, it's not as easy as people think.
Yeah.
And I was very involved in the creative process with a lot of my clients because I always considered myself very fortunate in that I never wrote, I never sang, I never played, I never produced, I never did any of it. I was a business guy. So when I would listen to a song, I was always a fan. And, you know, I never listened to anything over all the years that I've been in business. I never listened to anything in terms of what I would have done because I never did it. But I was able to give my clients very good direction based on what I knew what I knew and what I felt would be right. And it worked very well for me. So I think that the songwriting is the most important thing. And then I think a young artist getting started in producing, you know, maybe should, you know, intern or work at a studio and watch other producers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that could be very helpful.
Okay. Thank you, Barry. Any
We have a final one from Dan, which I think is a great question. Assuming an unsigned artist, singer-songwriter just out of college, who should be their first professional they should hire? An attorney, manager, agent, producer? How should they find them?
Well, that's a good question. I think I'll tell you what I think, and it's going to sound crazy.
Uh-oh.
This is going to sound really off the wall.
Where are we going?
I think what they need to do, like I said, we're in a DIY world. And people have asked me over the years, when they've called, when I said they could call with great albums, I need to go to the next level, I'm looking for a manager. I think what they need to do is their best to get themselves out into the world. And the reality of it is if you do a good job on your own, these people are going to find you. You don't go looking for them. Yeah. I mean, I found people over the years that I ran after based on their work that I had heard, or you know, shows that I saw, or whatever. You know, and I think that's a great way to find a team. You know, because then you're going to have some people that you can interview. They're not going to interview you. You're going to interview them.
Yeah.
So I think that it's best that you get yourself out there, because somebody said to me, when will I know that, you know, you're telling me I'm not ready for a manager. When will I be ready? I said, you'll be ready when your phone rings and somebody finds you because you've done something that they've heard about.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the labels. They do a lot of research. They look at, they used to talk into the markets and see what was going on, and then they'd go after acts and find acts. Well, they'd go after attorneys that they knew represented acts.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen firsthand what you're talking about. I've seen artists, working independently, and the ones that have the good songs, it spreads like word of mouth, and one thing leads to another, and then they're in a position of people knocking and calling them or me on their behalf, and it takes it takes time, and it's not doesn't happen to everyone, but that's definitely I think a
You'll
good
know that you're
advice.
really ready for people when they come looking for you.
Yeah.
It may be a longer route to get to where you want to go, but it'll be a more secure route, and you'll
Yeah.
know that you're doing something worthwhile.
Yeah, as Dan just wrote, he said, "Build it, and they will come."
Exactly, and I agree with him.
Yeah.
We got a couple more questions. We'll answer them if they exist.
We have one last one from Roy Fenichel. Young bands are being sued and music is blocked on YouTube, impending creation, etc. How can young artists create without fear of lawyers overzealously protecting those who already made it?
The question that I have to ask is, why are they being sued? Can the person that asked the question tell me why they're being sued?
Yeah, sorry. My wife is on our kids' Board of Education meeting, so I have to find an empty space. Basically, it's happened a few times lately where newer acts were either sued by attorneys for example, groups like, let's say, the Eagles, who are like 100 of millionaires, so they got it made, or YouTube videos are being blocked based on sampling, when obviously the members of the bands themselves are not scouring YouTube to prevent the younger artists.
Well,
so in a world, yeah.
The young artists have to do some due diligence here, or otherwise they have to have an attorney. But, you can't just go ahead and infringe copyrights and think that you're getting away with it, because that's not right. I don't care how young a band you are or anything else. If you want to put something up on YouTube or anywhere else, you better make sure that it's original.
And how not only how new the band is, but how rich the other party is, just because it's the Eagles or it's the Rolling Stones, and or whatever that you're using doesn't make it right. And I think I agree, Barry, with your perspective on that.
Yes, you can't just, it's not a free-for-all that you just go out and just infringe on people's works.
Yeah.
I ran after people over the years. Thank God nobody ever came after me or my clients, but I ran after people, and we collected. I had a better situation. I'll tell you one better. I had a situation where I had an act in 1972 that I managed early on, before I was a lot wiser, and we weren't getting along that great. So we decided to part company, and several $1,000s was spent on their behalf. So I made a deal with them and got 4 songs, in lieu of the money that was spent, as the settlement to break up the agreement. Okay, 7 years later, the band had a home run. And the band was Dr. Buzzard's original Savannah band, if anybody remembers that or has heard of it. That song, Chez Chez La Femme, Tommy Mottola, He's on the Road. Well, all fine and good. The band became a smashing success. 2 years later, they put out a record, and they used one of my songs. And they put themselves down as the publisher.
Oof.
And I ran after RCA, and I ran after them. And the reality of it was a song that meant nothing. That's one of my better songs, one of my, bigger earners. And, to add insult to injury, that same act, there was a greatest hits package that came out in 1997. I have it here. And I had a nasty habit. I used to go down to what we used to call record stores every month and look at everything that was there that I was ever involved with. Well, I see the greatest hits package. I see my song is on the back of the package. I buy the album. I bring it home. I listen. Not only did they record the song, they went ahead and infringed the copyright. They changed the melody. They kept the whole lyric and changed the melody. To top it off, they sold the song. They sold my song to someone else because they sold their whole catalog. And that was a nice, successful settlement.
Okay.
But I'm telling you, people can't just, it's not the Wild West where you just go out and take people's property and go use it.
Yeah. So thank you, Barry. Is there, should we take any more questions?
We have one more question, Barry. Barry's from our new advisor, Matthew Liu, who's a very smart guy and I think is going to business school. Matt, you want to ask it verbally or you want us to read it? You want Rivka to read it? Which is better?
Yeah, I can ask it verbally. Thanks, Dan.
Okay, thanks.
Barry, given your many years of experience, how have you managed to navigate all the different trends between different generations of listeners and customers? How do you keep your management strategies, or how do you keep your clients, those artists, relevant over the years?
Well, over the years, I shifted things. We did things differently. You can't be doing in 2020 what you did in 1995. It's a little different. The music is different and everything else is different. But you got to shift your strategy and you got to look at the world based on where you are in the world at any given time. I managed a lot of singer-songwriters. I built a catalog also. I had a lot of successes in the 80s and 90s. And the bottom line was very simple. I went to sleep one night in 1990 and everything was what it was. I woke up the next day and all the hair bands were gone. There came Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, and Rat disappeared, and this one disappeared, and that one disappeared.
Yeah.
So, you have to change strategies because back in, those days, one of my strategies was to have my people co-write with the artists. But you weren't going to be co-writing with Nirvana or Pearl Jam. So, we had to change our strategies and we had to, view the business differently and approach it differently.
Yeah.
The same things don't work today that worked, 5 years ago, 10 years
Yeah.
ago.
Music styles change. The technology now changes. I mean, it's a lot to keep on top of. But, these types of Q&As and interviews and seminars and conferences and articles. There's always the hot new band, there's the hot new TikTok and whatever else is next, and strategy, so it changes. That's the constant.
But if anybody would like the master class on music publishing and management, marketing and promotion, and learn how to monetize music and learn how to build a following and learn how to become a subscription service and learn how to get your fans to want to pony up a few dollars to subscribe to you, I would advise you come to my master class next Tuesday night.
Okay.
Go to my website and sign up.
So,
I'll be there. I've already signed up. I can't wait. Thank you, Barry.
Oh,
Thanks.
excellent. So are we, so we're good with the questions. I think we'll wrap it up. Well, I just want to, Barry, to thank you again for your time. It's a pleasure as always to speak with you, and this time to interview you. It's an honor, and as always, you bring a wealth of experience, laughs, and sage advice, right? So, thank you to everyone here as well, and look forward to seeing many of you in person, hopefully sometime.
I'll
Barry,
give
anything last words?
one last little tidbit.
Yeah.
Those who are in the business, aspiring to be in it or whatever. I have something I always did. If you have an important meeting that you want somebody at, or you're doing a gig in the future, or
Call him 41 times?
no,
Go
my
ahead.
advice
Sorry.
to you is pick them up and take them. I
Mm.
always did that because then you have a captive audience and they can't get away and you know they showed up and the only way they're getting home is if you take them home.
There you go. If you take them home.
Well, that's another story which I'll get
Oh,
into.
oh boy. All right.
Well, thank you
for a
both
good day.
so much. This was wonderful. Thank you for being here and for the sage advice. As Dan mentioned, you can find a lot of our distance learning series at flowbellangels.com/distance learning. And hopefully we'll see you at our next event.
We have a first Mondays on October 5th. So email me if you want the special invitation for that, dan@flowbell.org, or if you have any feedback or suggestions for some of our future webinars. I want to thank Barry Heyman. I want to thank Barry Bergman. I want to thank all of you for coming. I want to thank Rivka. And we hope to see you guys soon. Stay safe and have a wonderful rest of the month.